NERDSoul.
Why are you a black man in love? Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Black Together, A Walk in Her Shoes. We are continuing a series called Black Girl Magic, Smoke and Mirrors versus the Truth. So we're glad that you're back. Now, before we get started, I am Lady Lisa, and I am here with my sister, cousin, partner in crime, Lady Butterfly.
Peace, love, and light, everybody.
All right. So when you get a chance to check out some other videos right here on thatnerdsoul.com. There are video game reviews, movie reviews, TV show reviews, anything in Black geek culture right here on thatnerdsoul.com. And you can check out our Black Together, A Walk in Her Shoes page on Facebook, BT, A Walk in Her Shoes. You can also check us out on Instagram, BT_, A Walk in Her Shoes, and on Twitter, BT, A Walk in Her SH1. And if you want to check out part 1 of this series, you will find the link down below. All right, so let's go ahead and jump right in. So once again, this is Black Girl Magic, Smoke and Mirrors versus the Truth. So this series is pretty much talking about, I'm sure everyone's, heard it said, Black Girl Magic. You've seen it on a t-shirt. You've, seen it everywhere. You've heard people say it. So we're just talking about everything that comes with that. Of course, it's a term of endearment. It's a term to empower and celebrate Black women, which is fantastic. But we're just kind of diving into the possibility that it kind of comes with pressure, where we as Black women may feel, pressure to always seem like we're, quote, magic. Everything's always okay. There are no problems. We're always happy. We can handle everything. And so, of course, that can kind of, turn on us because we become, always feeling like we have to be on. So we're just kind of discussing that and a whole lot of different issues. So we're just kind of digging into this whole Black Girl Magic concept and kind of where it's gone and where it might be going. So before we go there, Kim, we have to check our shoe game. What's in the shoebox today?
We have a 4-inch Christian Louboutin Altilage platform stiletto because today we are talking about the price the Black community pays for reality TV and if we can actually afford it.
Well, there it is. Black women and reality TV. Can we afford this, quote, reality?
Mm-hmm.
Now, before we begin, I must confess, I have tried to get off this narcotic. I've been off and now I'm back on. See, what had happened was I said, you know what? I cannot keep watching these Housewives of Atlanta. This is a horrible portrayal of Black women. It's bad, horrible behavior. And I stopped watching. But then what had happened is they started a Real Housewives of Potomac, which is based in the DMV area, which is close to home for me. So I'm like, I'm obligated to watch. So I started watching that. And then, well, I got to catch back up with Atlanta now.
Right.
So, So, yeah, here we are. Just wanted to make that confession before we get started.
This the RTV anonymous meeting.
I'm not gonna stand up and start crying and yelling at nobody though.
You didn't earn your chip because you fell off the wagon.
Gotta give my chip back. I will. All right. So let's first, before we dive into the specific shows and kind of what the issues are with it, let's talk about the beginnings of reality TV and how Black men and Black women, kind of first popped up from what we remember and how they were portrayed. So what's funny is, you know, we were both kind of making notes about this, and we ended up pretty much making some of the same notes referring to the same thing because that is where it began. And
Right.
that would be the Real World. I don't know
Right.
if any of you remember, MTV had this huge series, what turned out to be this huge series called The Real World. And it was the first of its kind. And it started back in 92. And it went on, I believe, into the early 2000s, from what I remember. And I'll let you go from there.
Okay, so the the first thought that came to my mind when we were talking about the beginning of reality reality TV was season one
Mm-hmm.
of The Real World,
Mm-hmm.
and Heather B uh, was the black woman that was on there, and Kevin
Mm-hmm.
Powell was the black man.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin Powell is an activist. Heather B, at the time, she was a rap artist. Now I believe she's on a radio show.
Yeah,
Um,
with Sway.
right, with Sway,
Mm-hmm.
right. And it was during a time culturally where, it, it was cool to be, like Black Power or
Yeah,
whatever, the De La Soul, era
yeah,
of like hip hop and all of that kind of stuff. So um, seeing Heather B at that particular time was one of many examples of that type of um, representation. It was Queen Latifah,
yeah,
Moni Love. There
yeah.
was that type of that was the point of reference. Um, she a lot of the episodes were about her, building her career,
Mm-hmm.
being positive. I mean, of course there were conflicts in the house when you have strangers living amongst
Yeah.
each other, but the way that they handled conflict was
Mm-hmm.
like regular uh logical adults,
Mm-hmm.
rational human beings,
Yeah.
and the conflict wasn't sensationalized. It was basically just documenting these people being in an environment together.
Yeah.
With Kevin Powell, same thing, his social um his social beliefs, his level of consciousness was worked into the show,
Yeah.
you know. So everybody, I guess you could say that they were characters, but everybody kind of had their own lane. There was depth. There
Mm-hmm.
wasn't this, monolith being, you know what I mean? It's like diversity and positivity. And it was great, and I
Yeah.
was a huge fan of
Yeah.
the real world, because of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So,
I was too. I remember I even there was a Real World book that later came out, and there was an application in the back to be on the show, and I actually filled out the application. I never sent it
oh, I
in.
didn't know that.
Yeah, I never sent it in, but I actually did fill it out because I was totally in love with the show. I just, because, and a lot of people were, obviously, because they just kept it going. And I mean,
Yeah.
it was huge. And then they had role rules, and then they had real
Yeah.
world versus role rules. It was
Right.
crazy. Um, but I agree with you, because with Heather, Heather B, the house that had Heather B and Kevin Powell, and I don't remember who else was in there. I just remember,
Pedro and
oh
the cowboy
yeah.
guy. Yeah. Mhm.
Wait a minute. I thought the cowboy guy was in the house with David and Tammy.
Was he
I'm getting them mixed up. I
with
don't
the
know.
girl with that had the crush on the police officer girl?
Yeah, because the police officer girl was in the house with David and Tammy, because the police
Okay,
officer girl was. I remember when that
that was
whole
so
thing
long
went down.
ago.
It was, but hold on, I'm gonna get to that in a second because that was a whole different
we
one.
tell it, we tell it on ourselves,
Look, I
boy.
don't care, but no, but I did like it because because this was the first of its kind. You didn't have people that you felt were actors. It was just them. Then they were all different people from all different parts of all different parts of the United States. One second. And from all different parts of the United States, and they just were who they were. You didn't have the women that were overly made and, you know, just being overly dramatic or anything like that. So it was just cool. It was just really cool to see.
Yeah, it was.
But I think we are mixing up um, that one with the other, with David Edwards and Tammy Roman, who in later years ended up on Basketball Wives. Is that correct?
Yes. Hmm.
Um, and there was this whole blow up because you had, I think, about 6 people in the house, and
Hmm.
they're in their 20s, usually very early 20s, 18, 19 maybe. So there's playfulness, there's flirting, all of this kind of stuff going on. And
Hmm.
what ends up happening is it kind of goes too far, where people are kind of like ripping off covers off of each other. And there's
Right.
another girl in the house, I believe her name was Beth, who got upset because David kind of gave back what she gave. So it was between him and Tammy, and
Hmm.
then somehow Beth got involved. And Beth decided to throw around the rape word, which I don't even know how that came in, because there was no type of sexual anything. There may have
Right.
been sexual energy amongst all of them. But in terms of referring to his behavior as being like a rapist, was crazy to
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
And so then the women started demanding he be put out of the house. And that's how I remember that the female police officer was there, because they were trying to get her to handle that. And
Okay.
I think she ultimately did. She pretty much told him he had to leave the house. And she was using her authority as an officer, misusing, I should say. He
Hmm.
was not under arrest, nothing of that sort. You know what I mean? It was very weird how that happened. And it was kind of scary. Now, it was one of those moments that you felt really bad, because it's like y'all are about to ruin this man's career.
Right.
And so yeah, I remember that. That's one of the moments that I most remember. Probably one of my first major memories of reality TV, and how black people were portrayed or viewed on there. I will say I loved Heather B.
Hmm.
So that was a positive view. I loved Kevin Powell,
Hmm.
and I love that they both went from the real world and their careers blew up after that. I think that's amazing. But the way that whole thing went down with David Edwards and that girl Beth, it was crazy. And years later, when they had a reunion, Beth still couldn't find it in herself to apologize.
Well, of course not.
They
But
brought
I think that Tammy played a huge role in that.
Yes.
And
And
I
I
was
couldn't stand her
very
from day one.
right, exactly. And I remember feeling so just disappointed
Yeah.
in her the choices that she made
Yeah.
with that whole situation, because like
Yeah.
you said, that was in no way, shape, or form was it anything remotely close to rape.
Right.
And I think that it's a huge slap in the face to
Hmm.
people who have endured that
Hmm.
type of trauma, to equate having covers pulled off of you when you are fully clothed,
Yeah.
being the same, being the same thing.
Yeah.
And, it's like, what a difference from season one to season three in the
Hmm.
portrayal of people of color.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We have,
Absolutely.
the two key players, the two black people on the show at odds with each other. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And it being egged on
Hmm.
by someone who had absolutely nothing to do with it. And
Yeah.
it kind of is symbolic of, how this whole feminist movement
Mm.
has happened, where, white women throw out this rally cry,
Hmm.
and then black women align themselves with them to the detriment of our black men, you
Yeah.
know. And
Yeah.
perhaps I took that a little bit too far, but
No, it's true.
when I was just thinking about it now, not of
Hmm.
course at that time I didn't see it that way, I was young, but thinking about it now, um, it definitely sends that type of message,
Yeah.
you know, and then things just kind of spiraled. Well, I should say, first of all, the whole reality TV world exploded
Hmm.
from the real world. And then there were all
Hmm.
these different variations, and, you know, the more conflict that was involved, the better. And
Yeah.
so it just kind of was just this downward spiral into what we have now.
Yeah. And I really don't know if after that first season with Heather B and Kevin Powell, that the writers, producers, whoever said, okay, this is kind of boring. You know, let's amp it up. I don't know. Because it wasn't that eventful. You know what I
Right.
mean? It was fun to watch, in my opinion, but
Hmm.
there wasn't any juiciness.
Right.
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 And I think what happened is when they got to the real world, Los Angeles, which was the one with David and Tammy, and that happened, I think the viewership spiked.
Hmm.
And then they were like, ah, so
Hmm.
what we need to start doing is putting them in designed situations
Hmm.
and see their real reactions.
Right.
So we can still call it reality TV because we're not
Right.
telling them how to react, but
Right.
we can take note of their personalities and who
Hmm.
doesn't get along and whatnot, who
Right.
has a drinking problem. Because that was another thing,
Hmm.
is like they put these young people into these situations and pretty much give them full reign of alcohol,
Right.
you know, and then say, and let's just sit back and watch. So let's just
Right.
throw a bomb in the room and
Hmm.
sit back and watch how they scramble and who throws who under the bus.
Right. 100%. I
And
mean, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
and I was just gonna say, and from there, reality television, I think, pretty much just took that script
Yeah.
of creating crazy situations that no one would be in reality,
Right.
and see the real reactions
Hmm.
of people.
Yeah. I think it started off as an experiment of, hey,
Hmm.
let's pick a group of diverse people who
Hmm.
otherwise wouldn't know or understand or be around
Right.
this particular perspective,
Hmm.
which was, that was something that was cutting edge
Yeah.
at the time.
And I
That was
think that was a great
prior to,
concept in and of itself.
for sure. Yeah, and
Hmm.
this is before social media and stuff.
Hmm.
So really, it was difficult for you to see outside of your bubble,
Yeah.
um, unless you went to a college that was away from home and
Mm-hmm.
you were open to meeting all kinds of people.
Yeah.
So that was definitely a cutting edge thing. But the entertainment industry is about numbers, and
Yeah.
so they're gonna stick to the formula that works. So if they see, oh, conflict is giving us unbelievable numbers, then we need to
Mm-hmm.
try to find the people that would most likely butt heads
Yeah.
and put them in these situations, so that it'll be that much, bigger of a
Yeah.
reaction. And then, because that was kind of just the general tone of reality TV. But then when we kind of got into, because the real world wasn't necessarily marketed to a black or white audience, it was marketed
Right.
to youth,
Yeah.
but then it transitioned into this segment of reality TV that was marketed specifically to black people,
Mm-hmm.
and so then that turned into something else.
Mm-hmm.
And, if you look at some of the quote unquote reality shows that are marketed for white people versus black people, there's a huge difference in the type of content that are in those shows. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And so it's like you have to pay attention to what's happening in front of you, because it's so blatant
Mm-hmm.
when you're paying attention.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? That it turns from these positive, images of people just living life and doing their thing and all of that, to a specific narrative.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like the majority of the black reality shows that are on now, you can basically find materialism, uh, cosmetic surgery, uh, glorifying or making excuses for infidelity in a relationship,
Mm-hmm.
disrespect, you know what I mean? Self loathing. Like, all of these things you can find in at least one of the characters on these shows. But when
Mm-hmm.
you think about, in contrast, some of the white reality shows, like the quintuplet show and the Plathville show. Like, there's all of these white reality shows that are centered around being a family, religion and family values and all of these like
Mm-hmm.
uplifting messages. The 19 or 18 and counting, however many billion kids and counting,
Mm-hmm.
that show. There's so many shows that are like that are marketed, that are cast, that are a white cast,
Mm-hmm.
that are marketed to white people, that support family and spirituality and marriage and duty to community,
Mm-hmm.
all of these different things. The Sister Wives uh, show.
Well,
Even
yeah.
that, you know what I mean? Like, regardless of whether you agree with polygamy or not, and
Mm-hmm.
that whole thing, it's still promoting a family dynamic.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And
I get
so
what you're
when
saying.
you compare it to the Love and Hip Hops, the Housewives, like a lot of them housewives and basketball wives and stuff like that, they're not even married.
No.
You know what I
No.
mean? They're not even married. Some of them were never even married to the basketball players or whatever. They was the baby mama, or
Yeah.
the flavor of a couple of years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That got
And the
10.
housewives were never housewives. Like,
Right.
if you were a wife, you weren't a housewife. So, like, how you
Yeah.
qualify?
Yeah. It's
But
just.
I had never thought about, what you just said in terms of those other reality shows, because honestly, I haven't seen a lot of those. I've heard of them, but I hadn't
Mhm,
really seen them, and I hadn't really thought about that. But it's so true now that you pointed it out.
mhm,
What I've mostly been exposed to has been the 15 million different kinds of Real Housewives.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say, from the ones that I have seen, the ones that are majority white and the ones that are majority black, the behavior is the same across the board. You know, it's like what you were listing: the bad behavior, the conflict, the plastic surgery, the materialism, all across the board.
Mm-hmm.
But then the question becomes, can we as black women afford to continue to perpetrate that idea of us? See, white women can. Don't really matter.
Right.
You know what I mean? They can afford that. It doesn't really affect them the way it
Right.
affects us.
Right.
And so the question is, regardless of what they're doing, or regardless of it being an equal opportunity cesspool,
Mm-hmm.
can we afford to be a part of that?
No, absolutely we can't. Absolutely we can't. And when you were saying that, I hadn't thought about this prior to the show, but I just thought about it in this moment. And I know we were going to talk more about the housewives later, but um, when I was just thinking about like the Housewives of Atlanta,
Mm-hmm.
and the only white person on the show being Kim Zolciak,
Mm-hmm.
and she removed herself from that situation, got a
Mm-hmm.
spinoff show that is based on what? Her family, marriage, being a mother. I mean, come on
Mm,
now. She removed
yeah,
herself from the chaos and got a spinoff show.
yeah.
Now, when you really think about that,
Well,
the most
removed
success
herself from the chaos that she was an active participant in.
for sure,
Yeah,
for sure, and got her own spinoff show
yeah.
that promotes positivity.
Well, sort
Well, I mean, okay. Or I
of.
should say that promotes the family dynamic.
Yeah,
I'll say it that way. That promotes the family dynamic. And I
yeah. I
think
get what
that
you're saying.
those are the images that we need the most. You know, like
Yeah.
back in the 80s, the sitcoms that we did have, the black sitcoms that we did have,
Mm-hmm.
you saw a two-parent household. You saw what that dynamic looked like and what it felt like.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that type of imagery is important. But now all we're seeing is broken relationships,
Mm-hmm.
people being single and behaving in a reckless manner, people being in relationships where there's infidelity and disrespect.
Yeah.
Like there's no, there's no, there's
Just randomly
not
having children with no type of, intent of a relationship.
right,
Yeah.
right. So I just think these are all things that are problems in the black community, but this is not the whole of the black community.
Yeah.
And I think that, representation matters. And so it's not just about having a black person on a show so that you see someone that looks like you. It's also about positive representation,
Yeah.
you know, and we need to see that. Like if every black movie is gang banging or the downtrodden woman
Mm-hmm.
or a slave movie, like,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Those are the options.
Yeah.
Those are the options. And so you have that in the movie theaters, and then you have this on the television.
Yeah.
So where exactly do we go for entertainment that is a positive representation of the black community?
Yeah. That's it's so real and it's so true. And you know, it just gets so it's embarrassing. It's funny because it's like, even though no one's around, there are some moments, more often than not, where I feel ashamed watching these women and how they're treating each other and their behavior and their lack of accountability to each other, to themselves.
Yep.
Um, it's embarrassing and it's frustrating,
Hmm.
because it goes back to, I think we've touched on this in some other conversations, some other shows we've had, where it's not often any of the other women will call out, the other women who are being bullies
Mhm.
or who are being hypocritical in terms of, they're calling someone else out or trying to about what they're doing. But it's like, you just did the same thing to so and so last week, and
Right.
they don't get called out for that.
Hmm.
All these different things. And these aren't young, these aren't young women, young girls.
Exactly.
These is
Yep.
somebody's mamas and grandmothers.
Yeah.
Okay. They don't want
Hmm.
to admit it,
Right.
but y'all somebody grandma, or you at least old enough to be.
To be right. That's
I don't
real.
I don't care how much plastic surgery to stretch your neck tight.
Right,
You
right. No,
know.
that's real. Because back in like the early 2000s when that Bad Girls Club show was on,
Mm-hmm.
these were like 19, 20, 21-year-old girls.
Yeah.
They're going out to the clubs, they're drinking, they're wilding out, and then of course they want to get violent and fight and stuff like that. Well,
Mm-hmm.
even though their behavior was unbecoming of a young lady, it's not completely out of the norm or unexpected to see college age girls, fighting and carrying on and stuff like that. That's kind of the nature of that age range. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? But when you have the Evelyn Lozada and Tammy Roman and all of these women, Nene, they're behaving in the same way as these Bad Girls Club
Mm-hmm.
girls, and there's like a 25-year age difference.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It is. And I know you wanted to touch on some things about what's her name? Shawnee O'Neal.
Right. So I had a question that I wanted to pose, and it's for Shawnee O'Neal, in regards to Shawnee O'Neal, who basically is the producer of the Basketball Wives
Mm,
franchise, and Mona Scott Young, who is the producer of the Love and Hip Hop
mm,
franchise. So it's kind of like a two-part question.
mm.
So this is what it is. Are Mona Scott Young and Shawnee O'Neal bedwenches for white supremacy, or should they be applauded for giving Black folks jobs, platforms, and opportunities for entrepreneurship? That's the first part of the question.
Hmm.
The second part is, are those opportunities an even exchange or a plausible justification for the damage caused to the psyche of our people?
Whew. Okay, so let's get a little bit of background first. What prompted you to ask that question, specifically referring to those two ladies,
Mhm.
right? And um, you know, saying bed winches for white supremacy. What is it about them and or their shows that make you, make that comparison, or kind of group that together?
Okay, so the two of them are kind of like the Jay-Z and P. Diddy of that
Mm.
realm. You know what I
Okay.
mean? They have two of the most successful franchises in reality TV. And these
Mm.
are two Black women
Mm-hmm.
who are, the heads of
Mm-hmm.
these two successful franchises. And the content on both of those shows feeds that same narrative that I was talking about earlier with materialism, the cosmetic surgery, the self-hate, the being violent to one another, and disrespecting each other, disrespecting themselves. All of those different things are a common thread in those franchises.
Mm-hmm.
And so with them being the orchestrators of this, um, are are they harming our people or being detrimental to our people in the same way that white supremacy is harmful to our people? Um, it, I mean, to me, that's like that's not a reach whenever you're talking about doing something that is damaging. It doesn't necessarily have to equal death
Mm-hmm.
for it to be detrimental. And so to continuously perpetuate this narrative to make money,
Mm-hmm.
um, is that just as harmful as white supremacy? Are they kind of cozying up to it because, like, for their own personal success, they're willing, or their own um, furthering in the business or solidifying their position, they're willing to compromise our people as a whole? That basically is my question. And then it's like, okay, well, is there a trade-off? If they are being bed wenches, or even if they aren't being bed wenches, is there kind of this light at the end of the tunnel by them providing opportunities to the people that are on the shows? Because for the most part, if the people that are on the shows twerk it correctly, they
Mm-hmm.
end up with businesses and they have a platform to market those businesses. People are being employed on the show, they're being paid to be on the show, and then once they have businesses, then they're able to employ other people. So is this one of those things where we should just keep our mouth shut for the greater good in terms of employment of Black people and entrepreneurship of Black people? Or is the cost just too high in what it is that they're doing, that far more Black people are harmed than helped?
In my opinion, the number of people that, you know, get opportunity, get jobs, get businesses as a result of this, as a runoff, if you will, in comparison to the millions of people that view and take in all of this foolishness, doesn't balance out.
Mhm.
Because we can't forget, it's not just us watching this. There are white folks watching this with their popcorn buckets going, yep, see, that's how they act. That's how they
Right.
do.
Hmm.
And we can't in turn get mad
Right.
because we are putting it out there. There are circumstances when, or times when we can say the portrayal of us is being put out by media that has white people in charge. Yes, that is usually what happens. But in
Right.
this case, you have two Black women who
Hmm.
are in charge,
Hmm.
and they decide that you're going to put out this garbage.
Right.
And I've seen enough, not a lot, but enough of Basketball Wives to call it garbage.
Hmm.
And I remember I watched a few episodes and I was like, I just can't,
Hmm.
because every single episode was just women going at each other. You always had one that was the worst, but
Hmm.
everybody was behaving badly. And then
Hmm.
you'd always have one over in the corner who's quiet, but she's the instigator because she's
Hmm.
quiet, listening to what everybody's saying, so she can wait later and be like, you weren't there, but let me tell you what so and so said about you.
Right.
So that's
Right.
why you over there quiet. You
Right.
know, you recording. So it's it's bad behavior across the board. And now that you have two Black women in charge, they have the power to change this dynamic.
Right.
Because the thing is this, what if, you know, what if you change this so that these were shows could still be about these women's experiences of being with basketball players, some of y'all was married to him, you know, whatever. But it could still be about that experience.
Mhm.
And also be about, you know, what you learned from it, maybe even what you gained from it in terms of networking, highlighting businesses, supporting each other, being mentors for other women. What if that happened? And
Mhm.
you could still say there will be people who get opportunities, exposure, and businesses from
Mhm.
being on this show. So the
Mhm.
result or the runoff, if you will, could be the same, but what you're
Mhm.
putting out there will be so much better.
Right. I agree. I definitely
So,
agree.
in terms of that, they are helping contribute to, um, I would say, the theme of white supremacy. I wouldn't say they are. I can't really say they in and of itself are just as bad as the institution of white supremacy, because the veins of that are so complicated and intertwined, but they
Mhm.
are feeding it. Absolutely.
Mhm.
They're absolutely feeding it. And it's disappointing.
Mhm. I agree. So, I don't know if you have seen the commercial on OWN Network for this new reality show called The Bell Collective.
Mm-mm.
They have not shown actual clips
Mm-hmm.
of the show. So I don't know what all is going to be shown on this particular thing. But now that Oprah has um, gotten injected with the melanin vibe that she's gotten injected with lately, and so she went too far to the left with all the chicken eating and stuff with all the Tyler Perry shows, and so now she's trying to bring it to the back to the other side, and pick up the 40 ounce and Kool-Aid drinkers. So she got all of this other stuff going on.
With
So
her plethora of unsuccessful relationship shows.
yes. So now, okay, so it's the show called The Bell Collective. Like I said, they haven't showed any clips or anything, but it's like 4 or 5 women, and um the impression that I got was that they're going to be like some kind of Southern Belle socialites or something like that, and it's a
Mm-hmm.
reality show. Now, being that it's Oprah, I was like, okay, well, none of the shows that I can recall that are on the OWN network have any of that type of stuff on it where we would see the fighting and all of that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm interested to see if um, she has found a new path to the future with reality TV that is more positive.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and if she has, whether it's going to be successful or not, if they're not doing a whole lot of nonsense. I want to say that
Yeah.
it premieres at the beginning of the year. Um, I don't have the exact date, but for some reason I'm thinking that it was like January 4th or somewhere in there.
Okay.
So hopefully that is something that's going to be that's something that could potentially change the tide in
Mm-hmm.
what's happening, because we've gone so far down into the mire. It's like, well, where else can you really go outside of straight up assault? Well, we see assault. So
Yeah.
other than murder, like what else
Yeah.
could there be? You know what I mean? Because you always have to kind of up the ante
Mm-hmm.
to maintain ratings and maintain viewership. So
Right.
what's what's next? I mean, how many times can you see people be petty and argue with each other and get into scuffles and that type of stuff?
Yeah.
So that should be interesting. So maybe when that show first airs, we can do a little review on
Yeah.
it. We can kind of revisit this and review it.
Yeah, and I'm wondering how it's going to be different in terms of how it's set up from these other reality relationship shows, such
Yeah.
as Put a Ring on It and Ready for Love, which,
Hmm.
I mean, the concept is great,
Hmm.
but it doesn't seem like the aim is really to do what it says the aim is to do, which is get
Hmm.
people to come together. I
Hmm.
feel like you got all of these, you know, catalog models, to come together. All these people who do not look like regular everyday people I see at,
Right.
you know, in Kroger
Right.
and
Right.
Target. I mean, and I live in Los Angeles.
Right.
I don't, that's a segue, but
Right.
you go in Target here in Los Angeles, these are everyday people. Hear me what I
Right.
say. You are not
Yeah.
running into any Jennifer Anistons or anybody else in the Target. But anyway,
Right.
so you have all of these people you thrown together and you have this protocol, this if this happens, then this, and if that happens, then this,
Right.
right? Saying that you're trying to help people get into a relationship
Hmm.
or figure out if they want to get married. But the steps is foolishness.
Right.
You
It
know,
is.
it's foolishness. Like you draw people in with the concept,
Hmm.
when you put the pitch out, we want to figure out if they're ready to get married. Are they ready to put a ring on it? Or are they ready to call it quits? Oh, this
Hmm.
sounds great. You have a counselor, a doctor who's going to sit down and talk to them and help them. And she's like, all right, y'all, go on some dates. And when y'all finish with them dates,
Go on
go on some
sport.
more dates. Like, I could
And
have
then
done this before.
every 2 to 3 episodes, she'll go and visit the couples at their home or whatever. But
Yeah.
it's like I don't know how much time she's spending with them or whatever, but the way that it the way that it appears on the show is like it's more focused on the dates as opposed to
Yes.
helping them to grow. And I mean,
Yes.
you can see growth in some of the individuals within the couples, but it doesn't really tell you the story of how that growth came about. And
Yes.
so it's kind of like it's lost in it. Like
Yes.
it's good to be able to see the growth, you know what I
Right.
mean? But you're seeing the start and you're seeing the finish and not
Yes.
really understanding or being, having it reflected like what was going on to have this shift happen. And I
Hmm.
think that's what's helpful when people watch things like that, like kind of like with Ayanla. You see the
Hmm.
people, they come on the show, they're a hot mess, they work through all of the
Hmm.
stuff, and then you see the epiphany, you see the
Yeah.
awareness happen, and then you can understand how they got from point A to point B to move forward in their lives. It makes
Yeah.
sense. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And so my thing is, if you want it to just be about dating or whatever, that's fine. It can be that. Same with Ready to Love.
Ugh.
To me, Ready to Love is simply Temptation Island with all black people. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? So if that's what it's going to be, then market it as such.
Yeah.
I don't really have an issue with that, but don't try to make it seem as though this is some type of enlightening experience
Yeah.
if all you're going to show is the fluff,
Yeah. I
you know.
agree. And what I was just thinking is that two things that are quite bothersome. First, it's actually an insult to our intelligence as black people, because what you're doing is saying, okay, the only way they're going to be interested in any of this stuff is if we have the juicy parts and focus on that. Juicy parts
Hmm.
being in put a ring on it, the dates, them, the taboo of someone being in a relationship but having permission, per se, to go on a date with someone else. And I
Mhm.
think for a lot of them that's working on date number 5, 6, is it's that thrill of, I get to go out and do this and I'm not in trouble for it,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
But like you said, you see the beginning and the end result. I feel like there are all of these sessions going on that we missed. And you can
Right.
tell by the conversations they have on the shows that there were previous conversations, especially with Vince and I forgot her.
Tamika.
Yes, because
Mhm.
Tamika will just bust out crying and screaming about something he said and did. And we're like, on what episode? So don't insult our intelligence as Black people by thinking all we're interested in seeing are these moments of drama and conflict, and we're not interested in the process and the growth, because we are. Those of us that are watching these relationship shows, we're interested in it because it's something we can relate to, or something, we're going through, or whatever it may be. But we're
Mhm.
interested, and you are insulting our intelligence by only giving us the fat, right?
Right.
And then the second thing that's problematic is you are showing, I think, some younger people that this is what having relationships and dating and building relationships, trying to figure out where you're going to go, and talking about marriage, you're showing them that this is what it looks like.
Right.
And it's not,
Right.
because what we're seeing is a bunch of orchestrated,
Mhm.
hot messes.
Mhm.
This is
For
not what it
sure.
looks like. We can make a mess of stuff on our own. We don't need you to put it in the script. And that's
Yeah.
what's happening, and it's disappointing and it's bothersome, because I feel like I see a commercial for these new shows and I'm like, oh cool, it's a new Black show about relationships. Looks like quality stuff. Yes. And then you get to like episode 3 and it's like, don't tell me I gotta dump another show
Yeah. That's
and watch
yeah.
some reruns of A Different World.
Well, I think, the overall tone when it comes to the shows and different things that are marketed to Black people, there's just a certain narrative. Like I said before, with, movies, you have the option of drugs and gangs, slaves, or the downtrodden Black woman.
Mhm.
Those are the points of reference for movies. When you watch commercials, you immediately know within the first 2 to 3 seconds of a commercial who it's being marketed to,
Yeah.
because you either hear hip hop music or a bunch of R&B runs or something like that. It doesn't matter if it's a car, if it's shoes, if it's soda, like if it's marketed to Black people, somebody's gonna be hooping and hollering, doing like a Patti LaBelle run, or somebody's gonna be rapping, or you just gonna hear the beatboxing. It's like, it's that type of thing. And
Yeah,
so in the same
unfortunately.
way with these so-called finding love or enriching relationship type shows,
Hmm.
it's that same type of thing. Like, we don't want to give we don't want to give the meaningful parts that can be helpful in the relationship that a person may be in that's watching.
Yeah.
We want to give all of the fluff that goes along with it. And this was
Hmm.
some, like, on a positive note, I appreciated the show Black Love. I
Oh,
appreciated it so much because I felt like this is a good representation of what marriage and relationships are supposed to be. And, or I shouldn't say supposed to be, because they talked about the good and the bad and everything in between, but it gave you something to study and
yes.
understand And especially for people who maybe didn't grow up in a two-parent home, or maybe didn't grow up with influences,
Mhm.
um, to show them what, how Black men and women interact in a loving, healthy relationship,
Mhm.
and um, takes away kind of the storybook myth of what marriage is and that type of thing. Like, you can be married for 30 years and it can be a beautiful thing. That
Mhm.
doesn't mean that every day of those 30 years you all were laughing and smiling and giggling in each other's faces.
Yeah.
There were times where you had one foot out the door and another one on a banana peel, and it was
Mhm.
only because of your persistence and your commitment to that relationship that you're both standing where you're standing. I
Yeah.
think that that's beautiful, because
It
everything
is.
in our society now is like, it's about instant gratification.
Mhm.
You want to be able to click a button, you want to be able to snap your finger, you want
Mhm.
to be able to have one conversation and everything be exactly the way that you want it to be.
Yeah.
And that's not human. That's not how humanity works.
Yeah.
It's not how humanity
It's
works.
yeah. And
So,
I'm glad you
that
brought that
one,
up because I
yeah.
was thinking of Black Love earlier and forgot to mention it. And I will say I love that show.
Hmm.
We loved watching it because I agree. I love that um I really do like the fact that they have celebrities and that the celebrities they have chosen are willing to tell their full story,
Hmm.
right? Because it is important
Hmm.
that we see couples that a lot of people may view as the quote perfect couples have it all,
Right.
have money, have success, and everything's cool, everything's fine. And they
Hmm.
can sit down and be like, huh, no, 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 don't get it twisted. We had to
Right.
go through and build just like any regular person, because when it comes down to it, when you're talking about real relationship and real love, money doesn't play into that. When
Right.
you're talking about really relating to each other and making a commitment and having issues and figuring out if you want to stay, if you want to go, all of
Hmm.
these different things, money has
Hmm.
nothing to do with it, you know.
At all. I
And I
mean,
just appreciate it.
yeah.
I think it's genuine. It's quality,
Hmm.
and it doesn't have, you know, these twist and turn moments that they just kind of throw at you. We don't need that.
Right.
I know they think we do, but we don't need all of these, aha, shocking, clutch of pearls moments. We love
Right.
just good quality content. And I think that's what Black Love is. And I really hope they continue with it for a long time.
I do too. I do
Yeah.
too.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
you know what? We had
Mm-hmm.
some more that we were going to do, but I feel like we could use a break.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go ahead before we jump into this last little bit, and take a break and talk about our segment in your Black business. Who are we highlighting today?
Today we are highlighting strategic business solutions. Strategic Business Solutions is a woman and Black owned business founded by Tierra Fortune Jen. SBS specializes in educating small business owners on how to build business credit, properly setting up their business, writing business plans, and helping them secure grants and other funding for their business. Their purpose is to help small businesses thrive in the industry. Oftentimes, minority business owners aren't aware of opportunities out here for business success, which is why SBS is here to ensure all businesses are made aware of these opportunities. If you need assistance, please call 804-791-9104. That's 804-791-9104 for additional information, or you can send an email to sbsolutionsva@outlook.com. That's SBSOLUTIONSVA@outlook.com. You can also follow them on Facebook or IG by searching @SBSVA.
All right, fantastic. So, guys, be sure to check them out and pass that information along to anyone you think that may need it. Awesome. Now we're going to jump to another fairly new segment called New Day's Resolution, which is something I thought of. I know it's December, we're getting ready to go into the new year, and a lot of people talk about New Year's resolutions. And like I said on the show last time, those are resolutions a lot of us make and stick to for a month, if that. And so I thought it would be a great idea to focus more on resolutions that you could start small and just concentrate on sticking to it daily. So if you try it and you fall off today, you start again tomorrow and you start again and again until you get it right. So it's just less pressure than, when people traditionally make a list and try to force themselves to stick to that list, for the whole year. And it just really doesn't happen for a lot of people. So I was just going to say, it's okay if you haven't started yet or you fell off or whatever it is. Every day, start again. Remember, each day is your new start. Don't wait until Monday, next week, or next year. None of those are promised to you. Start today. Start with small goals and work your way down your list or up to bigger goals. You can do it. Better health, traveling, a business plan, a podcast, reading a book, online classes, redecorating a room, whatever. You can do it. Now, I will say I had some trouble, quite honestly, picking what it was I wanted to focus on because I'm one of those people in my mind and on paper. There's a list of things I've been meaning to do for some years, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, what am I going to focus on? And without really realizing it for the last, I guess heavily, for the last few days, I've been concentrating on forming a homeschool curriculum for my son that I plan to start next year. And I have made great headway with it. And so I'm going to stick to that. Every day I work on it. Every day I put some time into it. No pressure to, oh, I got to finish this today. I got to finish work on it sincerely and, put some serious time into it every day. And so that's what I'm going to focus on. Did you have anything that you kind of wanted to focus on, Madam Butterfly?
I have several things, but the one thing that I want that I will share is meditation.
Okay.
I created a space
Mm-hmm.
in my house, which you know about.
Mm-hmm.
Probably maybe 2 months ago, I
Mm-hmm.
created the space. Um, Took my time, got all my favorite colors and things, candles. It's all nice and
Yes.
aromatherapy. Ding, grammar bell.
Me.
Uh, and I think I have meditated maybe 2 or 3 times
Oh wow.
in that 2 months
Yeah.
after spending that money and taking the time to, because it's like, of course, you can't meditate unless you have a meditation area, and you got to have it the way you want it in order to meditate, right? You know what I mean? So, yeah, I just want to be
Yeah.
more consistent with
Yeah.
meditation because I think it
Okay.
is so important.
All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to hold each other accountable. So, you know, we're on different coasts in two different time zones. However, we know how to get a hold of each other when we need to. So we're
True.
going to text, um, email, smoke signal, whatever, each other every day. It don't have to be anything, drawn out. Just quick. Did you meditate? Did you work on the curriculum? No, get
Okay.
to it. Do it. Get it done.
Hmm.
Just to hold each other accountable. And we're going to challenge all of you. Pick something small. Doesn't have to be anything huge. It shouldn't be anything huge.
Hmm.
Again, this is, something you want to concentrate on daily. And pick somebody that will hold you accountable. That's the thing. Make sure you pick someone who actually will hold you accountable and see if there's something that you can hold them accountable for too. So you
Mhm.
can slowly work on these goals, because for a lot of people, again, these major, huge life changes, buying a membership to the gym and saying you're going to go every day, it's not working. These gyms
Mhm.
are about to get excited right now
Mhm.
because their gym memberships is about to blow up. They
It
about to
is.
take people for all parts of money.
It's
And them
true.
people ain't going to the gym after February. They ain't going nowhere. So
I'm glad you gave them credit till February because I was thinking more like January 15th, 16th.
I mean, I got to give them that much. Yeah, I don't know. um, and so let's jump back into a little bit more. We talked about it some, but we're gonna jump a little bit more into the Real Housewives, what I call the Real Housewives universe. First
Mhm.
thing I wanted to say, um, some people may take issue with this, whatever. I think it's interesting that a gay white man runs this whole Real Housewives universe. I
Mhm.
think it's very interesting. Now, again, I will say the behavior of these women across the board is consistent. It's the same
Mhm.
tropes, the same issues and problems.
Mhm.
But again, I think we as Black women can't afford it. And I just want you guys to think about the fact that this whole thing is pushed and perpetrated by a gay white man. Just putting it out there, food for thought. And I wanted to point out on the Real Housewives of Atlanta, in my opinion, in my observation, the only person on that show who seems balanced mentally and emotionally and behavior wise is Candy.
Mhm.
Nobody else. Everybody
Mhm.
else is by the seat of their pants.
Mhm.
And on the Real Housewives of Potomac, nobody is balanced. Not
Mhm.
one that I see on there has a balanced mind, attitude, spirit, any of
None of
that.
it. Mhm.
And Andy Cohen eats it up. Like this is his bread and butter. He has made it to the mountaintop on this one.
Mhm.
That's why he keeps rolling out the Real Housewives in a different city, you know. Um, yeah. I just kind of wanted to put that out there and just, the behaviors are horrible. And I wonder, I really wonder if this franchise was run um, by a woman or just any gender of color, would it look any different?
Well, I mean, based on Mona Scott Young and Shawnee O'Neal, no. So I guess it depends on what woman of color we're talking about, and maybe this, the that show, the Bell Collective, maybe maybe that'll give us our answer
Mm,
um, to that question. Um, that perhaps there is a different way, but we won't know. I had hopes for, even though I didn't watch this particular show, but I had hopes for that show, Married to Medicine.
mm,
Because I was thinking, okay, these are either doctors or the spouses of doctors, and so they're going to have a certain level of decorum because of the nature of the field that they're in. And based on the clips that I have seen, it's still the same shenanigans.
yeah.
So, you
Yeah,
know,
I'd watched I think I watched one episode because there's actually a Facebook friend of mine that I actually went to high school with that lives in Atlanta. And she was in one of the scenes or whatever. She kind of posted she would be in there. So I kind of watched. And I was like, oh my God. Like these are supposed to be professional women. These are
mhm,
doctors. These are wives of doctors. They are
mhm,
ratchet,
mhm,
just
mhm,
loud and indignant, tacky, and
mhm,
ratchet.
mhm.
with an MD behind it.
Yeah,
Ratchet
yeah,
MD. That's a new
that's
show.
it.
I don't need to give nobody no ideas.
That's it. I mean, if it's in you, it's in
Mm,
you. You know what I mean? No matter how long you go to school or don't go to school or whatever, if
yeah.
it's in you, it's in you. And if you're willing to, if you have a price and somebody's willing to
Mm,
pay that price, then it is what it is. You know what I
true.
mean? If
True.
if 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 money will allow you to compromise your integrity, if you have some to begin with, then you know there's no limit.
Yeah.
So
So,
some people,
yeah. So, guys, so for our footnote today, we're actually going to highlight someone else that we have lost in the movie industry. I think that a lot of us have enjoyed and remember watching for a long time. Who was that, Kim?
I, I'm having some technical difficulties. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was saying we've lost someone else in the movie industry.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. That is Tommy Tiny Lister, aka Debo, from Friday. He was found in his home on Thursday. So uh, rest in peace to him. Condolences to his family. And I pray that he transitions well. He was
Yeah.
a longtime staple
Yeah.
in Black culture. So
Yeah.
he will be missed for sure.
Yeah.
Talented brother.
Absolutely. And someone had put out something I saw on Facebook where they pointed out he was the fourth from the Friday franchise that we've lost.
Right.
So it was he, Bernie Mac,
Hmm.
um,
John Witherspoon.
John Witherspoon, and I cannot remember the other young lady's name.
Yvette. I
Wilson?
can't think of her last name.
Is it Wilson?
Maybe. Yeah. Uh huh. Uh huh.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know, such is life. That's kind of what happens, but
Yeah.
it's still, you know. So we just wanted to
Yeah.
acknowledge him. And we are at time, everyone. We want to thank you, as always, for listening and for all of you who watch and leave comments consistently. Thank you. Thank you. Tracy Lee, I want to give you a shout out. And I don't mean to not name anyone else. Please forgive me. But Tracy Lee just popped in my mind. You are always consistent with watching and leaving a comment, and I really really appreciate it. We appreciate you, and we
Thank you
appreciate
so
all of you
much.
who
Absolutely.
listen and share and comment. Keep doing it. Push the like button. Tell everyone about it. Tell us what you think. Like seriously, what you think. We want to have these conversations. Um, and so, again, thank you for joining us. Check out some other videos at thatnerdsoul.com. Be sure to check out part 1 of this series. And there is more to come in this series. We have some really interesting and great stuff coming up, really the rest of this year and planned on into the new year. You guys do not want to miss it. So thank you once again. Check us out on thatnerdsoul.com. Check us out on Facebook, BT A Walk in Her Shoes, Instagram, BT underscore A Walk in Her Shoes, and Twitter, BT A Walk in Her SH1. Thanks again, guys. Bye.
Peace, love, and light, everybody.